All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee. Everything School HQ. It's cold. It's snowy. My Keyshawn is in heaven because all she wants to do is walk around in this snow because this is her Super Bowl. But it's not the Super Bowl for the NFL season yet. But to talk all things NFL, as we do at this time each and every week, Mr. Evan Sowards of 49ers Hub is here. Evan, good evening, sir. How are you?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Not too bad. Made it back to Knoxville from Atlanta. Went back home for a couple days. But it started snowing when we were on the highway, so it turned into like a whole thing. We're like, thank God I have an SUV and I have four-wheel drive that I'm gonna make it through this. But it was a very Christmas vacation, like ending back to my house here in Knoxville from Atlanta. So we made it in one piece, and that's the main thing. Also here, veteran NFL writer, one of the best, Mr. Doug Kyed is here. Doug, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm up here in Massachusetts right now, and there's been zero snow, and it's been far less cold, it seems like, than the rest of the country. So we'll pay for it later, but so far it's been so far so good with weather.
How many Pats fans just assume you're just like a huge Pats homer or hater because they just think, oh, he must be a Pats guy originally? We were talking before your Washington State roots. Like how common is that for you, where people are just like, oh, it's the Pats guy?
It's kind of funny because when I was covering the Patriots as a Patriots beat writer for 8 years, whatever it was, I tried to play things as down the middle as possible. Obviously, like, you can sway one way or the other, but by playing things down the middle, you get it from both sides of being like, oh, you're a Pats homer, like you're always defending the Patriots, or from like the biggest Pats homers, they're like, oh, you hate the Patriots, like why do you even cover the team? So like, it's almost the worst of both worlds. Like, it'd probably be better to just pick one side or the other rather than just trying to stay down the middle. But no, I was not originally a Patriots fan. Moved to the area when I was like 11 or 12. So I was a Patriots fan for a little bit. But once you cover the team on a day-to-day basis, I feel like it's impossible to maintain fandom.
Do you feel anything for the Seahawks still?
It's funny because I moved... I'm old, so I moved in 1997 when they still had their old uniforms, like the royal blue, silver, all that stuff. And then pretty shortly after I moved, and this was like before like DirecTV was all over the place and everything, they changed their uniforms to those awful like multiple shades of blue uniforms. I feel like when a team, like in that day and age, team changed the uniforms, like players are different, coaches are different, like it's very easy to lose track of fandom. So I'm still a big Washington Huskies fan, but like I follow the Seahawks because I have friends back there and family and all that stuff. But no, I don't have much of a Seahawks fandom.
You're all about the UW dog pound. Evan's an Oregon guy. This is going to be worth quite. I think Tennessee goes to UW in a couple of years. They just booked that for an out of conference opener pretty soon.
It's a tough environment.
Yeah,
like Washington, loud.
Yeah. Michael Penix Jr. is a lot of fun. UW's they got a good thing going with Kalen DeBoer. I like where Washington's headed. But we're going to talk some NFL, and I think we need to start with the Pats. And I want to pick your brain on this, Doug, because as someone who has not watched every single Pats game this year, I want to get your perspective because Evan's he's the only one of the three of us who've enjoyed watching the team that they cover or spend a lot of time with for the majority of the season. The Falcons, Patriots not making the cut there. The 49ers in pretty good shape last I checked. So we'll save them for a second. But the Patriots, as someone who watches every game, what are folks missing that tells a good story of why this offense is so bad in 2022?
Like, they don't even know when to snap the ball. Like that's like it's the most basic premise of football. And the Patriots are constantly taking timeouts before the snap, delay of game penalties. Players don't know what they're doing. On 4th and 15 in this last game against the Bengals, with like 30 seconds left, whatever it was, like David Andrews, the Patriots starting center, snapped the ball on a passing play and just ran 15 yards upfield. It looked like a Madden glitch, like straight up. It made no sense why he would think that would be a running play. And like, not only was the passing complete, but they also got penalized for an illegal man downfield. So like, and there's some critics or like some Patriots homers, I guess I would say, who don't think it's the coaching and thinks that you can blame it purely on player execution. And like that's just a very convenient excuse of like, okay, every player is bad. Like, it's the most basic analysis that you can have. But I think it all just starts back with coaching, where like players need to know what they're doing. Players need to be on the same page. Everyone needs to be on the same page. And yeah, Matt Patricia is the Patriots offensive play caller right now. It feels like he's just dialing plays up at random. Route spacing is all over the place. There's no rhyme or reason. Like if it's 3rd and 4, wide receivers are running 15 yards downfield. Like nothing makes sense on offense right now.
Pets' heads are falling off.
Yes.
That's just, it's so weird because like sometimes before the season, like hindsight's 2020 with some hirings where it's like, oh, of course this didn't work. Like, of course this was always going to be the case. Of course Marcus Mariota was not going to finish the full season. He's never done it in Atlanta. Of course the Niners defense was going to be great with Bosa and company. But then people just like to, like sometimes there's surprises and people like to pretend that they knew all along that that's how the season was going to go. I feel like the Patriots offense was one of the ones everyone in national media and even fans were all like, oh, this is a bad idea. Co-OCs Joe Judge and Matt Patricia, this is probably not a great idea. This is going to backfire. And the whole summer was just, this is dumb. And you're reading the reports of like, this looks bad. And then it just happens. And it's like, oh, this was bad, and all of the summer concerns were validated. And you're like, what is going on with Bill Belichick? Because that's the biggest thing about all this, where it's like, why did he okay? And why did he think that this was all going to go something like, I don't understand it. Like, how much of this falls on Bill hiring poorly?
Well, I mean, before the season, or maybe it was early in the season, he said that, like, if the offense does poorly, blame me. This is my fault. I have ownership over the offense. So, like, I don't know what he wants us to do at this point, or what he wants, like, the media or fans, like, to walk up to him and be like, we blame you, Bill Belichick. Yeah. But, like, ultimately, I think it does, because he should have known better. Like you said, the world knew better. During this spring, I'd heard that players were concerned because, like, plays hadn't been installed yet. And then once the summer came along, they're trying to switch up their system to like a Shanahan style with outside zone, but no one seems to know what they're doing. And they drafted Cole Strange, like partially to run, I think, some outside zone, but then they've still got a 380-pound left tackle and a 350-pound right guard. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, everything just seemed haywire. It is really bizarre that Bill Belichick would allow this to happen because, yeah, I mean, the Patriots for years and years and years were the most prepared team in the NFL. They were prepared for things 5 steps ahead that would never happen. And now, like I said, they can barely snap the football correctly. So, I mean, I don't know. There are potentially easy fixes. I don't think it helps that Mac Jones isn't great. I don't think it helps that they don't have great skill position players, that they're paying too much. But ultimately, I think that I personally blame Matt Patricia and Joe Judge more than anyone, but it is Bill Belichick who put those guys in charge.
Is the Mac stuff dirty? Can you tell me for sure? Like, is what's going on there dirty? He gets fined for the Eli Apple chop this past week. Is that like a real thing that they're going to have to like talk about? Like, hey man, this is the film is stacking up now that you've got to stop doing this.
Are you asking if the play is dirty or is Mac Jones dirty?
I'm saying, I guess it's really both. Like,
well,
the play?
It's not though, right? Because the play is dirty. That's pretty obvious. I mean, right?
I don't think so. I still have a group chat with old Patriots beat writers. Half of us don't even cover the Patriots anymore, but we still have our group chat. And I said to them recently, like, I don't think Mac Jones can help himself. And like, I don't mean to like use that as an excuse for him, because like he should know better. He shouldn't be raising his leg to like kick someone when he's sliding. He shouldn't be cutting out Eli Apple's legs. But like, I feel like he is so competitive that in those situations, like, he just does dumb things that are dirty. And I think that it's like, I want to win, so I'm going to do whatever I can. But I don't think he's consciously thinking like, this is a dirty play, I'm trying to like take out this guy's legs. I think he's thinking, I want to win this game, or I'm frustrated, or this, or this. And that doesn't excuse it. I don't think that makes it better by any means. But I do think that someone needs to figure out how to curb that, because like opposing players are those things are going to add up. Like him twisting Brian Burns' leg is going to add up. I think it was Jaquan Brister, whoever he did, he kicked when he was sliding. Like that's going to add up. Eli Apple, like the more you do this, the more those teams are going to face you in the future and hold it against you.
It also doesn't help that he just like a week or two before has a play where they have the most ridiculous fumble of all time at the end of the game. And, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He obviously tripped, and I know it's not easy to, like, catch your footing when you're falling backwards. But, like, in a moment that was almost exactly the same, right? All you got to do is just get your body on him. He fell backwards and just like, I'm helpless, right? And then here again, it's like now it's premeditated and he just throws himself at the guy's knee. So like, is that definitive? Does that give you the answer? No, but it really doesn't help when you're having the discussion.
I did think it was funny because I think there has been a play in the past where like he's either tripped someone or like tried to trip someone or something. And it was like funny to me. It was comical to me where like, that was the situation where like get penalized, trip Chandler Jones, like do literally whatever you can to get him down on the ground. And like he just fell down backwards. And like Mac Jones ate it at the end of the game. He said like, I blame myself for not tackling him. And like to some degree, it's kind of funny because it's like, well, you're Mac Jones and he's Chandler Jones. There's no way that you're actually going to tackle him. But like he could have done something more. He could have done one of the things, like you said, that he's done in the past that have been regarded as cheap, and like that was the time to pull that out, not on a like non-fumble return when he's throwing himself at Eli Apple's legs.
Yeah, it's so weird. The Pats, man, like I mean, you see the Bill O'Brien stuff where it's like, oh, he's coming in to fix things, like it's
the
probably
savior.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know if you've been watching a lot of Alabama this year, and I'm telling you, Bama fans are like packing his bags for him. Right. Like it's not one of those situations where it's like, oh man, we gotta lock in Bill O'Brien. We can't let him go back to the Pats. We can't do that. It's like no, we'd rather get Jason Candle in here from Toledo. Like
that's
what
Alabama
we want.
though. That's the process. So you go to Alabama, you get your. So, but the one thing I'm really curious about, since you've covered the Pats for so long, obviously we know they're the dynasty. They're the greatest team of all time, greatest coach of all time, the greatest quarterback of all time, and I say that as a giant 49ers fan. Looking at the team where they are now, I feel like you've almost forgot how much money they spend in free agency. Like, remember all of us being like, oh my God, look at all the money they spent. Like, look at all the help that they gave this team. And it's like, is this a bump in the road or is this something more? Like, are we maybe looking at the end of it all unraveling and the end of Belichick, he retires? Or like, can they recover from where they're at?
Well, I feel like there's a pattern now of the last 3 seasons where, Cam Newton comes in, they're fine. Like they're a middle of the road team. Last year, they make the playoffs, but still they're a pretty middle of the road team. I don't think anyone thought last year when they made the playoffs that they would advance past the first round or get very far. And now there's this year where, once again, like even if they win out and make the playoffs, there's no chance that they're going to win in the first round or advance to the Super Bowl or do anything. So now this is 3 seasons in a row, and it's the 3 seasons where they haven't had Tom Brady. And their playoff win drought even extends back to 2019 as well when Tom Brady was here, and they lost to the Titans in the first round of the playoffs. So, I mean, I think that there is an out to this. I think that they can get back to being a contending team. But I don't know if it's next year. I do think, we can all make the jokes about Bill O'Brien, and they're fair. But, you just need someone competent to make this offense decent next year, I feel like. Because they were good. They were good enough last year. I think they were, top 10 in EPA per play. And this year, they're, bottom 5. So if Bill O'Brien comes in, it's pretty easy to make things better on offense. And I can actually even foresee a situation where, he comes in, they're top 15, top 10, whatever it is. And then maybe he gets an opportunity somewhere else. Maybe he becomes a college head coach or an NFL head coach or, does something else. So I almost feel like to fix the offense, they need to bring in 2 guys. They not only need to bring in Bill O'Brien, but they need to bring in someone as the quarterback's coach as well, because I don't know, if you see a coach on paper turn one of the worst offenses in the NFL into a competent one, then that guy's going to get a lot of credit for that, right? So I know that Bill O'Brien isn't the most highly regarded coach out there, but I could see a team giving him a second chance as a head coach if he can pull things together in New England.
I'm curious because it feels to me like the one thing I'll throw, because I think Belichick deserves a lot of blame for the current state of affairs this year, especially with this hiring and just how he's allocated his resources, drafting receivers, how he prepared for post-Brady. I think he deserves his comeuppance there. But where I will say that, like, the Spurs are going through the exact same thing in the NFL or in the NBA, where, like, they have been pillaged for a decade. You just go up and down the list where it's just so many front office guys, so many coaches just being taken away. Like, there's just so much loss because other organizations have picked and taken the Zieglers of the world, the Robinsons of the world, the Brian Floreses, the Josh McDaniels, that, like, I'm not surprised that it finally added up to where it's like Belichick's looking around because he's not an outside the box hire where he likes to keep his guys, that, like, he's now down to nothing. Like, he's down to none of his main lieutenants. They're just all gone.
But it even goes to Ernie Adams was like his timeout sort of analytics guru up in the coach's booth. He retires. Dante Scarnecchia, the offensive line coach for the last 50 years, whatever it is, he retires. Ivan Fears, the running backs coach for the last 30 years, he retires. Nick Caserio, who was helping out Josh McDaniels on offense, like doing some of the personnel things, doing some of the timeout things, substitution, he moves on to the Texans. So, like, I don't think, it's certainly excusable for the Patriots to have fallen off a little bit, but I also think that either you needed a better plan behind those guys, because it wasn't a mystery that at some point Josh McDaniels was going to leave, or, like you just said, you need to make an outside the box hire. You have to make an out of organization hire. That's not, two guys who ran a defense and special teams before who don't know what they're doing on offense. And that was part of the problem this offseason is that, okay, so Josh McDaniels leaves for Las Vegas, and he brings over, like, most of the Patriots offensive coaching staff. Bo Hardigree, their quarterbacks coach, was an assistant quarterbacks coach last year. Mick Lombardi, the Raiders offensive coordinator, was a wide receivers coach. Carmen Brasillo, the offensive line coach, was the offensive line coach. And at least in Brasillo's case, he still had a year left on his contract with the Patriots, and the Patriots allowed him to leave. And, I mean, if Matt Patricia wasn't trying to be the offensive line coach and the offensive play caller right now, something that no one else in the NFL is doing, I think his life would be a little bit easier, right? Like, at least the offensive line would still be in good shape. So that's where I still blame Bill, where it's like, even though he lost a lot of guys, you still have to question his method for replacing them.
That's the thing that I kind of look at where I'm like, you look at Mike Tomlin post his 2 Super Bowl wins, right? And he held that ship together and still has really for a long time. After Bill Walsh, obviously there was George Seifert and there was a plan, right? And there was, there was like a breakdown of what to do next. And I don't know that you can really ever take down Bill Belichick to the pegs that we might be discussing, but, like, you got to look at kind of what's happening here and being like, well, that's a pretty big, that's a notch. And however you want to level it out, like, on top of all the coaching things, it's like, yeah, he lost all these coaches, but Oakland's terrible too. So, I mean, whatever. My big thing is, like, it's still going to come down to Mac Jones. Because is that guy is he going to lead you out of, maybe some moves you have to make as a coaching staff, or obviously trying to figure out who's your offensive coordinator to get to be. Right. Like, maybe they could bring somebody else, one of the towel guys in to do it or something like
I mean, the Mac Jones situation, I don't have an answer to it, unfortunately, because I don't think anyone really does, because Mac Jones was pretty good as a rookie in 2021. Like, he was the best rookie quarterback last year. And then he takes
wasn't saying much, but you're right.
No, it wasn't. No, absolutely not. Because obviously Trevor Lawrence had an excuse for being bad, and Justin Fields had everyone had an excuse for being bad. I do think that Mac Jones was put in the best situation. But this year, I mean, Trevor Lawrence lost his head coach and offensive coordinator. Justin Fields lost his head coach and offensive coordinator. Zach Wilson was really I think the only one who got to keep his head coach and offensive coordinator, and he's the worst one. But still, like, other guys had difficult situations this offseason and have overcome them this year. And Mac Jones has gotten considerably worse. I do think that Jones has played a little bit better over the last few weeks. So that helps. Maybe that, like, gives him some, upward trajectory heading into the offseason. But I do think that you have to look at that he still has limitations, and maybe this is, I think you give him one more year with a competent offensive coordinator, but if he doesn't reach that year one potential and even exceed it, then I do think that you have to look to find another quarterback, because he's not doing enough right now to overcome some of the issues in New England. He does still have some arm strength limitations. His accuracy hasn't been that great. His decision making has improved, but early in the season, he was turning over the ball a lot too. So it seems like they're having a hard time finding the balance between him taking risks but not turning the ball over, him, making, I don't know. It seems like they're just finding a hard time finding out what Mac Jones can actually contribute this year.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. There is a very realistic possibility that next year they decide to hire an actual offensive coordinator, and just like Doug, Peterson being able to show Trevor Lawrence what some stable coaching looks like. There's a world where Mac Jones kind of gets back to where we're used to, but it just there's a lot of shaky pieces right now.
It's not shaky. Brock Purdy mania over there in San Francisco, Evan. Nothing shaky about what's going on with Brock. The Iowa connection, who would have ever thought? Not in my dreams, wildest dreams, did I ever think a Hawkeye and a Cyclone would become the best of friends. Yeah. And yet, the Cy-Hawk connection is just flourishing in San Francisco. George Kittle and Brock Purdy, yards after the catch, a tradition unlike any other. No one's tackling him. No one's stopping him. You never know which way Brock's looking. You never know which way he's going to throw the football. Everything coming up Niners. It's unbelievable to watch what's going on in San Francisco right now, Evan.
It's insane. And, I can't stress it enough. It's so much more insane than we're talking and, discussing it being. But we're all saying out loud, this is insane. I can't stress enough. As a 49ers fan, you're like, okay, hopefully he can just do enough. And then he comes in and he does more than enough. You're like, well, that in itself, that's pretty strange, but we're not going to complain. And then he comes in and he starts having really good mobility and he moves super well in the pocket. And you're like, rookies don't do that, but we're not going to complain. Let's all just be quiet and hope that it doesn't burn down. And then all of a sudden he starts hitting George Kittle and you're like, well, George Kittle hasn't really been useful in this offense all season. And we all just thought that was Kyle's fault. And as a Jimmy supporter, I'm like, hey, man, Jimmy didn't do that. So then we're like, okay, well, this makes no sense at all, but let's all be quiet because let's not, we don't want to jinx it. And then George Kittle starts just catching touchdown after touchdown after touchdown, and the offense is flowing, and you're like looking around for Ashton Kutcher. You're like, am I being punked? It doesn't make sense, and we're all terrified because it's like, is this a house of cards? Is this going to come crumbling down? I don't want to say anything. I don't want to make any adjustments because we're too close to the Super Bowl now, and it's just it's so great to watch it happen. And I talked to you about I remember when I was on the mountain and I bumped into Sage Rosenfeld, who coached him and trained him, and obviously played under Kyle. And he goes, I'm telling you, man, I don't know, but I think a lot of people are going to be very surprised by how good Brock Purdy is. And I was like, sure, man.
That's your guy. You got to go to bat for him.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what I was thinking. You trained him. I'm sure he's got a great, hardest worker in the room. And then I watched this guy for 2 games, and I'm like, holy shit. I don't know what to, I wish I had more words, and I don't want to ramble, but I see the 49ers as in a place right now where they have the best defense in the NFL. It's not even close. If you look at the overall DVOA numbers, they have 36% DVOA, and the closest to them is 26%. They're firing on all cylinders in ways that I have never seen any team other than maybe the Chiefs under their Super Bowl run with Patrick Mahomes, and they didn't even have a good defense. I don't want to jinx it, but there's not a better team in the NFL right now than the 49ers, and I don't think that it's close. Every major marquee playoff contending team has taken bad losses or had the Cowboys have had 30 points scored on every single game they've won the last 3 games against bad teams. And so I'm sitting here as a 49ers fan, and I'm looking at everything falling into place, and I'm like, It's too good to be true. This can't be happening. I can't take another Super Bowl loss. I can't do it. I can't do it again. I can't have my hopes raised, but like that's where we're at as 49ers fans. We're now at Super Bowl or bust territory. Nothing but a Super Bowl win would be good enough.
What do you think, Doug? Do you agree with this sentiment?
I think that the Brock Purdy thing has definitely been interesting because not to bring this back to the Patriots, but when the Patriots had Bailey Zappi at quarterback for 3 weeks, like I had asked a bunch of people around the league, like, what do you think about, Bailey Zappi? Is this sustainable? All these different things. And you can even talk about like Mike White as well. Some of these other quarterbacks, like at some point teams figure it out. And like, it usually takes 2 or 3 weeks for a new quarterback, if he's having success, to come back down to earth. For Brock Purdy, what is it now? Like 4 weeks that he's been riding high and playing well. Like it's 3 weeks as a starter, and then plus he played a bunch of snaps in the game against Miami as well. So like, I feel like we're almost past that point where a defense would usually figure out the new quarterback who's having success. And if anything, I feel like Purdy's actually playing better as his starts have gone along. So I still think that there's some cautious optimism about the way that he's playing. I think that there had maybe been times when like there's a few balls that should have been turnovers and whatever it is. But one thing that's surprising to me is that I don't think that the 49ers are really doing anything that different schematically with Brock Purdy than they were with Jimmy Garoppolo.
They're doing more.
As far as like, they're like, they haven't changed their downfield passing that much. They haven't changed their play action. They haven't changed, the screens. They haven't changed. Like the pressure's been about the same. The situations have been very similar for Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy. And obviously, the offense is firing on all cylinders right now. They're playing better with Brock Purdy. And I feel like maybe this is more damning to Jimmy Garoppolo than it is anything else. That like, I think that Jimmy Garoppolo was a pretty average quarterback. And maybe that's what Brock Purdy is as a rookie right now as well. And that you didn't need that there wasn't going to be a massive drop off between Jimmy Garoppolo and the next guy. And, in the past there has been with CJ Beathard and some of the other 49ers quarterbacks who have come in, but even those guys have had some success early on. Right. So I think it's also a testament to how good of a coach Kyle Shanahan is, that the system can keep running, whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo or Brock Purdy back there.
The one thing, there's to your points, a lot of the discussion, rightfully so, has been Brock Purdy. It's been Kyle Shanahan, the offense. It's been the skill position players. I don't know if there was anyone less confident in the Brian Griese hire at the beginning of the season than me. I mean, not to be a traditionalist, but I'm sitting in there like, you're hiring a coach that has zero coaching experience. Right. I'm not a scientist, and I certainly didn't graduate college, but the math doesn't work for me there. And I've talked to some of the beat writers myself, and I'm like, hey, why aren't we asking these questions more? And they have at times, but I'm a big common denominator and variable person. What are the variables? What are the changes? What's the same? And there's a lot of common denominators. There's a lot of things that have stayed the same throughout this process. But one of the biggest changes has been getting rid of Rich Scangarello, who was pretty much across the board considered a bad coach, all things considered. He went to college. No one knew why someone would go to college after an NFL job. And,
he got fired after a year.
He got fired after a year. Right. So they bring in Brian Griese. And is that just because it's going from negative to even just a net positive? Who knows? But now, like you mentioned with Jimmy has had his best season this year that I've ever seen him play. And I think it's notable. It's not just he's doing a little bit better. He is doing things that everyone said he couldn't do. He's making plays that everyone said he couldn't make. And now all of a sudden you have an undrafted, almost an undrafted free agent, the last pick in the draft, come in, and he is not just playing game manager football. He is literally threading the needle in between three defenders. He is getting the ball to Kittle, which other quarterbacks like Jimmy couldn't do. And does Brian Griese need a little credit here? Does he deserve more credit? Or I'm waiting to see what happens.
It's kind of making me wonder if more teams do this now, actually, because you've also seen Mark Brunell have success with the Lions and kind of turning things around with Jared Goff over the last 2 seasons. And Mark Brunell didn't have coaching experience. If he did, it was like at the high school level or something. Like he was a retired NFL player who did media and then was a quarterback's coach. And that's pretty much the exact same thing you can say about Brian Griese. So I almost feel like our team's taking the wrong approach with a quarterback's coach of having Bo Hardegree as your quarterback's coach, or having like these guys who haven't played the position, who rose up through the ranks as coaching assistants, wide receivers coaches, whatever. Then you like reach the ascent of being a quarterback's coach. I feel like teams should be hiring like Kurt Warner, or they should be hiring Dan Orlovsky, or hiring these guys who have played the position at a high level, because clearly it's worked with Brian Griese, it's worked with Mark Brunell, and I think it's worked with some other guys as well who have, you know, had that experience and know what they're doing there.
I wonder if that's a trend. It seems like it's a copycat league, and we'll have to see if that's. But who would have thought that hiring competent quarterbacks of the past would know what they're talking about when talking with quarterbacks of the future? It's like Zach Wilson not having a rookie around or a vet around in the quarterback room. You're like, how do you just overlook basic stuff like that? Like, how is Joe Flacco just not in this dude's like ear from day one? Like, how do you just have no vets to help this guy along? And that's not to say that would have changed the ending for Zach Wilson in New York, but it certainly may have helped a little bit early on.
Start, yeah.
Yeah, you want to start well. In terms of the Falcons, they've officially been eliminated from the playoffs. I'm reduced now to this point, guys, to watching Nate Tice just break down Des tape, where he's like, "Oh, there's a little something here," where he found Drake London over the middle in the Ravens game on Saturday afternoon, and which was one of the more poorly officiated games I've seen in a long time. And Arthur Smith is just an incredible guy to follow when things are going awry for your team, because the man, he puts his emotions on his sleeve, he wears them on his sleeve, and he has had a reason. I mean, this year alone, you have that game on Sunday. I think they still were going to lose that game regardless, but you have the Grady Jarrett personal foul, roughing the passer, that flipped the Bucs game, where, I mean, just one of the all-time worst roughing the passer calls on any player. And it's just, I don't know what to think of this Falcons team right now, because I think Dez has shown enough where he's so smart that I'm sold on that portion of the game, where I'm listening to him talk and I'm just like, he's just like 37 years old. The man is a veteran, and I understand why they were talking about it this summer with Dez, where it's like he's ahead of the game. Is that just like
a you are aligned with him type thing, therefore you like him? Like you're both like old as hell?
We're both old as hell. He looks significantly older. We're not in the same skincare routine, unfortunately. My man Dez is looking like he's 43 in the face. Like, he's got a very chiseled, like, I've seen some stuff face. The man's not sharing that part of our daily routines and personality types. But like he said to Kelly Price, who covers the Falcons for Fox 5, he said the biggest thing he learned Sunday was he get antsy to get rid of the ball, when in reality, I probably had a little bit more time back there, take a second and let the picture develop. So, like, he's the opposite of Zach Wilson, where Zach Wilson is, like, not even thinking about that at all. He's not thinking about, oh, I've got to get the ball out quick because this is a really, really fast game. Like, he's just getting blindsided by dudes just coming in. Like, they should be in his peripheral vision. He should see that something's coming. He needs to get the ball out quick. Desmond Ridder has that, and you see it. I mean, he had a couple near picks in the New Orleans game last week, and this week he was a lot more settled, I think. But he's all about getting the ball out quick, not making bad decisions, and kind of a game manager type. But you see the big throws. He finds Drake London when he needs to. Drake London doesn't fumble last week. Who knows how that one ends. But we haven't seen him with Kyle Pitts yet. I want to see that. And he just, I don't know. He sees the game really well. He's learning on the fly. Like, hey, I don't have to be as antsy and try and get the ball out as quick as possible. And there is stuff downfield if I trust my receivers a little bit more, and I just trust my offensive line a little bit more, that I can actually keep the ball for a little bit longer. But I think you want the young quarterbacks to have that timer in their head where they're like, get the ball out quick, do not take those hits, to get the ball out quick. And that's good. So I think I've seen enough where I'm like, I don't think the Falcons can take a quarterback in the first round next year. I think he has shown enough that I'm like, you can see how this works with this group. And also, Tyler Algier is just an absolute monster and an absolute delight down the stretch here. And I'm all in on the Tyler Algier stuff. But I don't know. Is that a similar read to what you have on the Falcons as they go into another offseason where they did not make the playoffs, Doug?
Yeah, and I feel like the Falcons have actually kind of exceeded some of my expectations this season. I would have bet on them getting eliminated from the playoffs even earlier than they did. I thought that they were going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL just based on their roster construction. It seemed like they were like, all right, let's take a year, figure out what's going on. And so they've been fine. And obviously it helped that they were in the NFC South, and that's what helped them get eliminated so late. But no, I like Desmond Ridder. I talked to him actually before the draft, and he was someone who struck me as being, very mature. I had heard that he interviewed really well, which was not a big surprise after I talked to him, after you see some of his interviews and everything like that. And I think that, when you take a quarterback in the third round, that allows you to have some options heading into year two. Like if things are awful, things go awry, then you just take a quarterback again. It's no skin off your back. You only took him in the third round. But it also still allows you to have some upside at that position. As someone who's taken in the third round. It's not like he's a late round pick or anything like that. So no, I think that they've bought themselves one more year, or he's bought himself one more year where he can head into next offseason competing for the job. But it's also a really interesting year for veteran quarterbacks because you've already got, Geno Smith, you've got, maybe Daniel Jones. Like there's like 20 starting caliber quarterbacks, or 15 or something like that, hitting free agency. But then there's also guys like Derek Carr who might become available, and Carson Wentz. Not that anyone would want Carson Wentz as a starter, but like even like Ryan Tannehill. What happens to Ryan Tannehill next year? And obviously there's the connection there with Arthur Smith. So I feel like the ideal situation is the Falcons add other talent in the first round, get some sort of veteran quarterback to compete with Desmond Ridder heading into the offseason, and then just, I guess, run it back with kind of the plan that they had this year, but hope that you've got a better option as that veteran quarterback than Marcus Mariota, or hope that Desmond Ridder can play better than Marcus Mariota did this year.
And also just hope that Armstrong is not ever needed in coverage. I jotted down my notes every week where I'm like, 22 is on the field, like they're going to target 22. Like the poor guy off the practice squad just should never be on an NFL field. And I don't know what the passer rating is when targeting him, but it's 130s, no doubt. Like the man it's a walking completion, and it drives me up the wall that we're just at that point where it's like we just have nothing else in the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, that definitely speaks to the amount of talent they had heading into this year. The Arthur Smith being combative with the media thing has been pretty fascinating to me over the last 2 years, because it's not the biggest market, obviously, like as far as like the amount of beat writers that are on the beat, like that are there, but like Atlanta is a big market. I'm curious to see how that goes for Arthur Smith moving forward. To be as combative as he is, to be as argumentative, because I don't know if it does you many favors if you're going to be heading into year 3 as a struggling head coach. I think that, I don't know, I just feel like he needs to curb some of that one way or the other. But I'm curious to see how like maybe it works out for him. But I do think that like coach relationship with the media is kind of sneaky important sometimes.
Interesting. Who have you heard who do you think's the worst at this? Outside of Bill.
Outside of Bill. Well, I don't think that Matt Patricia was very good at it.
Yeah.
I think that, when he was like telling media members to sit up straight, like, but that's what can happen, is that like, like if you get on the media's bad side, then they don't give a shit about writing negative things about you. And then obviously like the fan base can pick up on that as well. And that's how things go really south. I'm thinking, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like, it's tough to pinpoint some of the worst coaches with the media right now. Bill is obviously pretty bad, but I don't know. That's an interesting question. I honestly feel like some of Arthur Smith's exchanges with the media are like so unhinged that like like he's up there when he's talking about like Twitter bots and like some of that stuff, the conspiracy, that's just like, it's wild to me that a head coach is going that far. It seems like he has curbed that a little bit as the season's gone along, but early in the season I was like, what is this guy doing? Like you don't need to go this far with it. I don't know.
Yeah. But what helps is The running game's working well, and there's progress. Like Drake London looks like a steal. The offensive line's played significantly better than the talent that you would think with the talent that they have. I think they're still heading in the right direction, but next year's a big year for this group. I think they have to be maybe not a wild. They need to be in the wild card conversation in week 17, like they are week 18 now. Like they have to be on the bubble. I think ownership would understand, because that's what people forget is like Arthur Blank's one of the more patient owners in sports, and he's very loyal, a very, very loyal guy. He gave Dan Quinn longer than he probably should have been the head coach. Mike Smith the same way. I don't think a change is happening anytime soon for Arthur Smith. I think he's probably going to get 5. I think Blank wants to do that kind of thing, which is good. Stability. It's not good if you're like, wow, I wish you were a little bit more cutthroat, because we're really dragging this thing out when it's clear that this is not moving in the right direction and we better suited going the other way. But I don't know. We'll see with the Falcons. Just another season that's just been so boring. Falcons this year have been one of the last 2 years, it's just boring.
It's not a team that you see pop up on like NFL Red Zone.
No,
I feel like you've got to find the Falcons. It's not something that's gonna come to you. But
let me just say, you don't have to find the Falcons. I don't recommend that. I don't suggest that. Yeah, I would actively do the opposite if you can. If you see the Falcons coming your way down the street,
evade the Falcons.
Please, go to the other sidewalk.
As far as I thought about this for a second, as far as head coaches that are bad with it, I feel like Cliff Kingsbury is kind of bad with the media. Cliff Kingsbury constantly lies to the media, and it doesn't matter because the Cardinals have like one beat writer, so no one notices.
Ken Summers is doing his best, man.
Seriously,
it's like the Popeyes worker and the
exactly. But like Cliff Kingsbury will say for 4 weeks in a row that Kyler Murray is going to be a game time decision, when like Kyler Murray doesn't play for 4 weeks in a row. It's like, well, how is he a game time decision 4 weeks ago? He's still not playing right now.
Well, so I don't know if this has anything to do with that, but I remember this mid-season, my buddy who lives in Phoenix, he's nobody. He's a comedian.
Yeah.
But he gets his hair cut at a barbershop that football players and coaches do, and he texted me one day and he's like, Kyler Murray hurt himself this week not playing football. Oof. And I never said anything because I was like, I don't care about the Cardinals. Like, it doesn't mean anything to me. But then I did proceed to see him like pretend like, oh, well, Kyler's, it was the week that Kyler had like the headset on and, was calling plays and stuff.
Right.
And I think that they did. I mean, I don't have any proof, but I think they actively were like trying to hide that he like, I don't know, maybe hurt himself on like a 4-wheeler or something like stupid like that. And it literally lined up perfectly with all of that. And if you're Cliff, maybe you're just like, I have to lie because I don't want anyone to know that Kyler hurt himself punching a wall after he lost in Call of Duty. Like, whatever it may be.
Well, we never know, and you hear those stories like Bumgardner. He had a lot of crazy injuries. Tatis Jr. for the Pods. He was a 4-wheeler, I think, the first time in all allegedly, by the way. Here we're throwing all that out.
Xavier McKinney did hurt himself on a 4-wheeler, and like Xavier McKinney, the Giants safety.
So did the Seahawks
Cancun
guy
or something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
How was it not in the contract? I mean, Ben Roethlisberger on his motorcycle, that was one years ago. Like, how are these not in the contracts of all these players now? Just like standard. You're not allowed on any ATVs, like immediately.
Yeah. I mean,
don't even think about riding an ATV.
No Call of Duty either.
No. You can strain a hamstring playing Call of Duty somehow. I'm sure that's possible.
Evan, have you ever gotten injured? You're a big gamer. Have you ever gotten injured actually playing a video game?
No, God, no. But
have you ever thrown a controller like through a wall? Are you a rage quitter?
I'm not like that. No, but there actually, it's funny you say that. There was a guy about a week or two ago. Just the video went viral because he was streaming. He dislocated his kneecap because he got mad and he jumped up and started stomping on the ground, and he dislocated his kneecap from doing it. So
Was it Kyler?
Allegedly, no, no. But yeah, so I think that it definitely can happen. Once again, don't recommend it.
Yeah. That just seems like such a crappy situation all around. Like just a marriage all across the board that no one's like ownership, front office, head coach, quarterback. None of it's good. All of it's bad.
Well, they're constantly yelling at each other on the sideline.
Yeah, none of this is good.
Like Kyler, it seems like has a quick temper. DeAndre Hopkins has like a no nonsense policy. Cliff Kingsbury gets in the mix, and then their GM's on a leave of absence. They have to fire their offensive line coach.
The
or
funniest,
that was in Mexico.
by the way, did you hear that was literally like a case of mistaken identity because it was actually Keem?
That's what someone's claiming. I have no idea though. Yeah,
so it's just everything's weird. We have no idea what's going on there.
It's also because, hilarious. Like I said, there's one beat reporter there, so no one can even write about what's happening there because no one in Arizona cares about the Cardinals. So
and even
it all
still,
goes back to that.
It is literally it's like Succession, the TV show, where it's just like everyone is miserable. They're all bad. They're all bad. Like none of them are likable. You don't want to root for any of them. So it's just constantly like Kyler being like, that guy sucks. And it's like, yeah, you're not wrong. Steve Keem does suck, but you're terrible too. You're like a miserable person. And he's like, Kyler sucks. It's like, yeah, he does suck. Plays a lot of video games, but you also are an alcoholic. Allegedly. That's not even allegedly. He's got multiple DUIs. I can say that.
Yeah, it's a bad situation. It doesn't help that Kyler and Cliff Kingsbury share an agent too, and just like it was a situation set up for they hire a head coach who was fired as a college head coach who was about ready to take a college offensive coordinating job. It's like, I wonder why this didn't go well.
Wasn't it USC who was trying to hire him?
He was going to go to USC. Yeah. He'll probably be the Patriots offensive coordinator next year, or quarterbacks.
No, he's going to Alabama. That's the cycle.
Yeah.
There you go. You got to be Alabama, and he'll be an analyst making $250, just in an off-field role. JJ Watt, first ballot Hall of Famer in 5 years. We're gonna look at it's 2028 is the first time he can make the Hall, right? Evan, your favorite JJ Watt memory or quote, or what are you gonna remember most about JJ Watt, the football player?
Without a doubt, it was his speech as a Texan when they were like 5-11, and he was up at the podium and he was like, basically, I paraphrase because that was one of the best speeches I've ever heard, but he was like, I give a shit because of the fans. He's like, I make so much money. We make so much money. These fans, it's week 16. Like, we're not making the playoffs, and they're still here every week. They're sending me messages on Twitter. They're like, hey, I believe in you. Like, kill it. Good luck tomorrow. Like, he's like, these people spend their hard-earned money. They care. And he's like, how can you not come to practice and try every day? How can you not work out? How can you not do the homework? How can you not care when they do? And it was what JJ Watt has always been a man of the people. He's always been an incredible player. The moment he's allowed into the Hall of Fame, they will be pushing him in, carrying him. I think he's one of three of the best defensive players of our lifetime that we've all watched personally. Obviously, Aaron Donald, him. He's so good, and he's
they can go in together. I just realized they're probably going to go in together.
They might,
possibly, yeah.
But that speech I think was probably my favorite moment. And there's so many, right? Like on the football field that you could give, but that speech was like that's incredible.
For me, pretty good, dude. Doug, was just that the photo of him in the whatever it's called in the Arctic. Where was he when he's just like taking the little ice bath in the? Where was that? Do we know? Where was he when he was doing that? Was that just Wisconsin? Like he was just back in Wisconsin doing that?
Wisconsin, yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about? The picture of him just in underneath where you go ice fishing, and he's just taking a little ice bath in there, like it's no big deal. Just the Watts are built different. That's like one of those where it's like, oh, that's okay. I guess he's a human being like me, but it seems like we're built completely differently.
He's not a human being like you. He's not. I mean, he weighed more than me in 6th grade. He's like lifted more than.
Speaking of, the baby's head is gigantic. The baby's head is a full size, like 7 5/8 already. Like that baby is going to be a football player.
You talk about him as a first ballot Hall of Famer. 22 years from now, that kid is going to be literally this NFL sack leader. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
That was the first thing I saw when he was announcing it. I'm like, that cannot be the baby's head. And you like zoom in, and it's like this. It's huge. Like it's wild. But Doug, what about you with JJ?
I don't know if there's like one specific moment, but first of all, JJ Watt was like the Aaron Donald before Aaron Donald. Like he was the absolute best defensive player in the world for like 5 straight seasons. Basically, like, could not do anything wrong on a football field. He was absolutely incredible. So yeah, like, he deserves every single bit of flowers that he's getting. Absolute first ballot Hall of Famer, should be unanimous. We'll see if that happens. But I think that JJ Watt kind of benefited from his somewhat lack of self-awareness and the fact that like if you think of the word hardo, like JJ Watt's probably the first person that would like come to mind. I don't know if people still use that word or not, but like, he just like, with the whole, like, he was the guy who was doing the workout routines. He was the guy doing like the box jumps. He was the guy who like kind of did all, but it also raised his profile. Whereas I feel like Aaron Donald is the best defensive player in the world, but he's just not as out there as JJ Watt was. I feel like maybe we don't feel the same way about JJ Watt if he didn't put himself out there as much, if he wasn't like trying so hard to prove to people like everything they did, the hard work they put in, everything like that. But no, I mean, he was absolutely incredible. He was a complete dominant force every time they stepped on the field. It's unfortunate that injuries kind of derailed, the back half of his career. But I also feel like when you're built like JJ Watt and you're as explosive as JJ Watt and you're as big as JJ Watt, like, there's only so much that the human body can contain. And I feel like that's like why he got injured as much as he did, because he's so explosive at the size that he is. So yeah, I don't know if there's one specific moment, but like, he's incredible. He's the man.
Let's never forget to also just the view or the vision of him having this like bionic brace on his arm that he was constantly just terrorizing pass rush,
Right.
like quarterbacks, while also like looking like his arm was being held together by wires and metal. Like, he's one of one.
What, he had a weird situation coming out of high school, or like being recruited or something, right? Where he like wasn't a top recruit.
I don't know.
Doesn't that
I don't remember that.
I think, I don't know, I'd have to look into it, but like, that's amazing to me, is that like, I think that, yeah, he started off at Central Michigan. It's like, how did people miss out on JJ Watt coming out of high school? You know what I mean? Like, how was this guy a 2-star recruit? I don't know. That's an amazing part of his story too, that he went from a 2-star recruit going to Central Michigan to being like the absolute best player in the NFL.
Antonio Brown, Central Michigan, where like you watch the Central Michigan Georgia game from so many years ago. I remember watching it, and it's like you just started and like, this dude's just cooking this Georgia defense. How is the dude? Yeah,
they were just paying a lot of money to players back then. Maybe that's how they got.
Or just
JJ
good evaluators. Look,
Brown.
if there's one thing I know, it's Dan Lefevre and the Central Michigan Chippewas. They know how to evaluate their player personnel and player evaluations. That's why you got Jim McElwain up there now. They know what they're doing. They know how to find the diamonds in the roughs to get things started there.
Butch Jones, another former Alabama coaching assistant.
Yes, I mean, it's a tradition unlike any other.
Yeah.
Nathaniel Hackett was let go. Year one coach. We've talked, Doug, this season where it's like there was a chance where you're looking around the league and you're like, there's 3 year one head coaches that you can make the case should get fired. Dennis Allen probably saved his job of late, but still iffy. Still iffy to this point. Todd Bowles, with what's happened to the Bucks year over year, we were like, man, we just might need to do a clean start once Brady, because I'd be very surprised if Tom Brady is a Buccaneer next year. Just do a full teardown there. And then you're looking at Nathaniel Hackett, where you're like, I don't know how you bring this guy back. I don't know how you run this thing back and you sell it to the fans. And then he's gone, and you're like, wow. And this is what I said before the year in the AFC West, where people were like, oh, they could have 3 or 4 playoff teams. And I'm like, that's never how this goes. Someone's going to have the season from hell. I don't know who it is. Evan and I went back and forth because I was like, the Raiders are going to finish around 500, and they're going to be really close. I'm like, McDaniels cannot go like 3-14. And with Adams and with Carr, like, I just don't see the path to them being that bad. My coworker Max Crosby doing the Lord's work over there on the edge. But like, the Broncos made the most sense. Outside of the Chargers, who the injuries being what they are, you're like, just penciling in the Chargers for the playoffs is a mistake, and penciling in just health and getting it together, it's just, you can never get me to sign on for that. No one had it going this bad though. Like, I thought like 6-11 was bad at year one, but it was so bad, and getting cooked by Baker Mayfield and the Rams the way they did. Cam Akers, who we thought might just be not an NFL running back anymore, 3 touchdowns and just absolutely obliterates the Broncos. It probably should have been it when you have the Denver home fans just like helping you along with the play clock, where it's like it's counting down and they're treating it like he's Giannis Antetokounmpo out there, and you're like, this is probably a mistake. This is when we need to move on. Like, this is unacceptable for an NFL franchise to have the fans chanting along because you cannot snap the ball in time. Real remedial stuff. And you're like, I don't know what the future holds for the Broncos. Like, if you just put the Texans logo on these helmets, you're like, oh my God, the Broncos, this organization and everything, this looks like an absolute dumpster fire. Like, how do you get out of this? This is a really, really bad situation. Why would you want this job? Doug, should Sean Payton or a big name want this job?
I don't think Sean Payton should. I think that, first of all, Sean Payton making his bones in New Orleans, like, I go back to small market, not a ton of pressure on him there. I feel like he's better off going to Arizona or another smaller market team than Denver. I think there's too much media pressure. And I just don't think that you want to deal with Russell Wilson. I think that Russell Wilson is like one of the most difficult players to deal with in the NFL. And if you're Sean Payton and this is your comeback and this is probably your last job in the NFL, I don't think you want to tie yourself to Russell Wilson at this point, because he also just showed so many limitations as a quarterback this season that were, masked pretty well during his days with the Seahawks. And maybe the mobility fell off more this season. Maybe he just, regressed a little bit more. But no, if I'm Sean Payton, I don't really want to deal with that. I think that what Denver needs to do is, if they can't get Sean Payton, which I don't think he should take the job, I think that they should go back to something that worked and hire Dan Quinn and then bring in Brian Schottenheimer as the offensive coordinator. Like I think that even though maybe Brian Schottenheimer, I don't know how much he'd really want to deal with Russell Wilson, but I feel like he can turn around Russell Wilson. He knows what works. Like, go back to what was proven with Seattle and try to run that back as best as possible, even if it's 85% of it, even if it's 80% of it, 90% of it. Because, like, Russell Wilson was like a shell of himself this season. He was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL, which I certainly didn't foresee happening. I didn't know if he was going to be an MVP candidate or anything like that. But, like, the number one priority, even more than your head coach, needs to be to fix Russell Wilson, because you can't get out of that deal. He's the way that offense moves forward. The defense is still in good shape. The defense is going to be in good shape next year as well. You just need to fix Russell Wilson. So, I don't know. If I'm Sean Payton, like I said, I'm probably going somewhere else. I'm even considering going back to the Saints. But to your point on the first-year head coaches, like, yeah, I think Dennis Allen could be out. I could see a situation where Todd Bowles, I don't think deserves to be head coach there next year. And, like, who knows, even Lovie Smith, like, what have the Texans done this season other than being, like, somewhat competitive against some good teams, where, like, the teams that simply just promoted their defensive coordinator to head coach, I think that does give them a pretty easy out to then eliminating that coach after 1 year.
The Texans are out here running Driscoll Mills 2 quarterback system like this is Chris Leak, Tim Tebow, and for the Florida Gators in 05. Like, we just moved on from, like, that's what they're running. Like, that's happening. They're just running the 2 quarterback system of, like, the running quarterback and then the passing quarterback. Like, that's a normal thing an NFL franchise should be doing right now.
First off, respect Jeff Driscoll, 49ers legend, okay?
Was he a Niner? I feel like he's doing a lot of rosters. Okay.
He was literally one of my favorite of all the stupid, like, 49ers legend tweets I have, he was probably my favorite, because he was, like, 6th-round draft pick, like, a backup of a backup in, like, 2011. We're like, hey, maybe he could, like, have a decent career. And then he immediately left that year and has just constantly been a backup. I mean, he's been around for a decade. God bless.
I mean, he's going to be an offensive coordinator for, like, the Jets in 7 years. Like, the man's going to be around forever. We're just going to be like, Jeff Driscoll still cashing those checks. Shout out to him.
The one thing I do want to say, as much as Russell, I mean, no one loves to hate Russell Wilson more than I do. I will never forgive the Broncos for allowing the Seahawks to so efficiently reset after losing their Hall of Fame quarterback as they have done, because now they have a top 3 pick, which I'm hoping to dear God they draft, like another Zach Wilson.
No, it's going to be Jalen Carter and Will Anderson.
Yeah, I know. But anyways, the Broncos have Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton, the two best wide receivers in the NFL. They have Patrick Surtain, who's one of the best corners, probably top 3, top 2 right now. He's just incredible. You think about Justin Simmons, Greg Dulcich is like a really exciting prospect at tight end whenever they figure out the quarterback situation, whether it's Russ not playing terrible or someone else. So I don't know I think the stink of this year's Broncos is maybe clouding our judgment here. Like, why would Sean Payton not want to go to that type of talent with a quarterback who at least at one point was a Hall of Fame level quarterback? If you're Sean Payton, you're like, take me where the talent is. I'll clean the bullshit up, and we'll go from there, right? Like, he can bring in, Jameis Winston's probably going to be a free agent, right, this year? Like, Tom Brady. Can you imagine Russell Wilson getting cut after the first year? I mean, it's not absurd. Look at Matt Ryan. Look what they did with Matt Ryan and that cap hit. You think they wouldn't do that for Russell Wilson if they just wanted to get rid of him?
I don't know if they physically can. Like,
I think they can, right?
I think next year. I think what's weird with the Wilson cap hit is it's significantly more after next year, not this year. This year it saves them money. Next year it's like goes from like 40 to 60 million cap hit. I think it's something bonkers where it's 40 to 60. I think in succession.
Over the cap always absolutely like murder.
A standard release, a standard release of Wilson would be practically impossible.
It would be an $85 million dead cap hit if they cut him after this season.
You might got to do it. I'm just saying.
And you don't have your pick, so it's not even like you can really draft his replacement and like bring in real competition that way because you can't use more resources there. You don't have a first-round pick.
What if he brought in Tom Brady and Russell Wilson was the backup? Would that not be the most? So I don't want to get into.
Well, I don't think any of those veterans guys like that are wanting to compete with Russ. Like they're not walking in to go join.
Well,
that
I think
circus.
if Tom Brady came in there, he would not be competing with Russ. He would, in that
Russ would think it's a competition, and I don't think anybody would enjoy that.
Russell Wilson talks to himself in the mirror when no one's looking, so I don't really care about.
Hold on, we already have Brady getting ready to go to New York. Like that's what we're waiting on. Brady is the Jets quarterback 2023. That's what the world needs.
So first off, that's what you want, but the likelihood of that compared to Jimmy Garoppolo is like non-existent. Jimmy Garoppolo will be going to the Jets. I'll bet that over Tom Brady for anyone that wants to take that bet. Now that said,
Jimmy to the Jets. Brady to the Raiders, maybe.
Brady's going to the Niners.
Niners, maybe.
Well, actually, now with Brock Purdy, no, I don't know, man.
What about Trey Lance? Can you just pick a quarterback in San Francisco, Evan?
Well, before Brock Purdy, it was the most logical thing, period. Because you bring in Brady because you can't bet on Trey Lance at this point, whether you wanted to or not. Yeah. But now with Brock Purdy, who knows?
Maybe you just flip Wilson and Lance. You just get Wilson as your long-term backup in San Francisco.
I don't want to get into the hypotheticals because I don't think it's necessary. But what I will say is this. I think the Broncos have a very favorable team for anybody that wants to come in and take over. The biggest question that I think everyone should be asking, and we should be doing it loudly so that maybe it does check his ego, is can Russell Wilson check his own ego? Can he look at this objectively and go, wow, I suck as a person and as a player for once in my life, and like learn and get better? Or is he incapable with that ego and he's just going to go into next year, Broncos country, let's riding all the way into another 4-win season?
I mean, he needs that. Like, we'll know if he's changed. It's like Richard Sherman and him pop in on a podcast together. That's when we know nature is healing, is when they do a show together.
I don't think Russell will. Do you think Sierra is ever going to get to a point where she's like, okay, it's been fun, but now you're really screwing up my reputation, so get your ass out there and stop acting like an idiot?
I don't think so.
I'm not sure if I don't know if he can have self-reflection this offseason. Like, we'll see. I just think he's such a different guy. But I think that he can still be successful if they change the coaching. But like, he became a problem in Seattle. I don't think all the messaging out of Seattle after he was traded was like, oh, Russell wanted out. Like, they were just as sick of Russell Wilson as he was of the Seahawks. And I think after this season, we've kind of seen the reasons why that was the case. So
I don't know. If I'm Dan Quinn, I'm not taking this job. Like, you get one more shot if you're Dan Quinn. You get this is it. You get one more. And I don't think I'm betting my head coaching future in this league on Russell Wilson, the rehabilitation tour.
You can blame Russell Wilson and then get rid of him and then give yourself another chance. But
it's just risky.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a risky job. The defense
I would
is great,
wait.
But,
like, if you're Dan Quinn, I'm waiting on a better job. I think he's got a really good thing going. He's in a unique spot in Dallas, right? Like, the Dallas defense isn't going anywhere, I think, with Micah Parsons and company, that, like, he can wait it out. I mean, he can also just wait it out for Dallas, like Mike McCarthy to fall down and him be the next guy there, which I think is a better
Sean
job.
Payton in Dallas. If lose in the playoffs. Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't know. I think feels like a Leslie Frazier stop to me. Oof. That's my gut. It's weird because you're saying like the principal owner or CEO is the guy leading the search. The report, it's not George Payton. So you're like, okay, well, that's not a good sign if you're a candidate. You're like, who's running this? Are the Waltons running this?
For the Broncos, like, would George Payton just pulled off the deal for Russell Wilson before they took over. So, like, I don't think you can then trust him to also hire the next head coach.
And he wasn't hired by this ownership group.
Nope, he wasn't. Yep, he wasn't, and neither was Hackett. So
the
only one that they've really tied themselves to is Russell Wilson, the contract that they gave him.
It's a mess. I think Denver is a bigger mess than people might be letting on. We'll end on this quarterback movement. We mentioned a little bit. Lamar, Brady, Rodgers, and Carr, the four that I'm most interested in right now. If you had to guess where the big four go, Evan, where are they playing football in 2023?
Wait, so Lamar stays with the Ravens. I think I wish he wouldn't, but I don't think you can have that type of relationship and not. I hope he doesn't. Brady, it depends on how the season goes. I still think the 49ers is where he wants to go. And twice now we've had a young quarterback in Jimmy and now Brock. Maybe potentially block that from happening. What was about the third?
Brady, Rodgers.
I don't think Rodgers leaves just because, I can't believe he's still there right now. I don't know. Maybe Hackett comes back and they're a happy family. And then the fourth?
Derek Carr.
I hope for all of our sake, I hope Derek retires. I hope he retires and he can go pretend to be a cowboy in Fresno, where there is neither no cows nor farmland. But yeah, no, Derek Carr is probably going to end up staying in Oakland. And the head coach that comes in, because I would assume McDaniels gets fired, or if he doesn't, like if McDaniels stays, he's gonna be like, I can do it with Carr. If he gets fired, they're gonna be like, well, this Toyota Camry in the driveway, like it's got 200,000 miles and it kind of is weird in third gear, but like it's reliable. I'll use it until I get a better car. Like I don't think he's leaving. I did a car analogy without even knowing I was doing a car analogy for car. I swear to God.
It's big time.
It's next level.
By the way, that is what you said big four. Other than Lamar Jackson, that is just a disgusting group of quarterbacks.
That could swing a lot of stuff here.
Tom Brady is old, and Aaron Rodgers is really high.
Doug, where do you see the four going?
So Lamar, I've got staying in Baltimore. I don't think they let him go. I think they give him the franchise tag. Rodgers is a tough one. It's either Green Bay or retiring, I think. Just because I don't think there would be a lot of benefit to the Packers for trading away Aaron Rodgers. Carr, I'm going to go Houston. Going back to where David Carr started his career, I think Derek Carr still thinks favorably of the Texans. Derek Carr's got a no-trade clause, so he can pick his next destination. And Brady, I'm going to go Raiders. I'm going to say that he'll take over for Carr. Josh McDaniels will try to run it back with Tom Brady, fix things. I think it benefits Brady to go somewhere where he would have some familiarity as well, a coach who would trust him. So, yeah, that's mine. So Lamar, Baltimore, Rodgers, Green Bay are retiring, Brady, Las Vegas, and Carr, Houston.
I'll also throw out, I think Jordan Love is gone. I don't think Jordan Love is back for Green Bay next year. I think
we really need to discuss where Jordan Love goes.
I think he's a starter somewhere. Some team is going to talk themselves into Jordan Love as a starting quarterback. I think he's going to you're going to see him as a week one starter. It's going to be my guess. I don't know where, but I think it's going to happen. I'll say for my four, I think Lamar ends up in Washington. I think he is a Commander next year. I think they go that way where they're like, Rivera's ready to win now. I think the relationship and him negotiating for himself and just the way this has gone, I don't think it's good. And I think the franchise tag, that's what they should do. Because like Lamar I wish Lamar could do like just a gigantic 1 year deal after 1 year deal, and everyone be okay with that. Where it's like, when this ends, it's going to be terrible. We'll pay you whatever you want this particular year because we believe you're good enough to win a Super Bowl.
He becomes the Darrelle Revis of the quarterback.
Yes,
position.
Just like that. That's kind of what he is.
Hired assassin.
But I think he leaves. I think this relationship is nearing its end. So I'm going to go Lamar to DC for a needy team, QB needy team who thinks they're a quarterback away. And with the defense and with their playmakers like Terry McLaurin a lot, Brian Robinson looks pretty good. They might be right if they think they're a quarterback away. I say Brady ends up with the Jets. I think Aaron Rodgers returns or retires. I actually think he retires. I think Rodgers retires in Green Bay. I don't think he wants to keep losing like this on his resume. So I'm going to guess Rodgers retires because I don't think they'll trade him and they'll move on from Rodgers in that way. And then I think Derek Carr ends up in Tampa Bay because I think Tampa Bay is like, oh, we'll move on. We'll pivot. We'll get another veteran, plug him in, and we'll make this work. We'll be a little bit better, and we'll change head coaches, and we'll see what happens with this group. That's my gut.
I like that. And Tampa Bay fans, like, no offense to Tampa Bay fans, there's not a lot of them. Like, any other fan base would be like, we're going from Tom Brady to Derek Carr. But the Buccaneers, like, unfortunately, I feel like they'd just be like silently hating it, but wouldn't make much of an impact.
They're like, Brad Johnson won a Super Bowl for us. Like,
right.
Why couldn't Derek Carr?
Yeah.
Doug, what can the good folks check out from you on the NFL writing front this week?
Follow me on Twitter at Doug Kyed. I'll be writing a couple pieces for theanalyst.com. I think Russell Wilson piece coming up soon. And then I also do a Patriots podcast called Pat's Chat. So if you are a Patriots fan, check that out as well.
There you go. Evan, 49ers Hub, all that good stuff. What do you want to plug before we wrap up here?
Yeah, go ahead and make sure to watch Avengers Infinity War one more time before the year ends, and follow Doug. Yeah,
there you go. Doug, this was great. Thank you so much for making the time this evening to join the program. This was great, and we'll have to check back in again soon.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Thanks, guys.